Nerves be gone. I was telling myself. Sorry, you guys, when I get in front of here, it's like a mirror. You'd think I would check before I come and get on, and I kind of do, but then I get all distracted and do all kinds of other stuff. So, welcome. Um, Listen, I know the last couple of videos I'm playing music when you come on, and I want to play this song. It's called Count the Days. Some of you might be familiar with it, some of you might not, but I want you to check it out. So, gotta hear it all the way through. Girl 6 CD, old school. If you're new school, welcome. The Girl 6 was a movie by Spike Lee, I believe, and the CD is pretty good. It has got like pink cashmere, and let me see, just a minute. Hey, that is not the album. Oh, She Spoke to Me, Pink Cashmere, Screams of Passion, Girls and Boys, Erotic City, Don't Talk to Strangers. It's one of my favorite songs. Used to listen to it as a bedtime song. Pardon me in that cough. Thank you to the dramatic reading. I mean, thank you for coming to the dramatic reading. That song always gets me excited, and I sing it super loud when nobody's here. And I don't mean to be offensive, and I hope I don't. Like I say, I have to be. You have to wonder, and even before I knew who the lyrics were about, you have to wonder who they're about and why a genius such as the master would sing about, here's the church, here's the steeple, here's a mother blanker that I got to blow away. Here's the interview, here's the time. If I keep your secrets, will you keep mine? So it's just like with Da Vinci, and the Vatican holds secrets over his head. It's similar to that in that way, except for it's not just, the Vatican. It's Kingdom Hall and all KKK white supremacist real legion organizations, not the people within them that have been lied to, but the NW owned portion of the organizations is what I'm saying. This world, in case you haven't read your Bible, yes, the creator Hashem, he made it, but it belongs for a time to the others. And so that's part of the reason that is. And so that's the TikTok on those days. You know what I mean? TikTok. Welcome and thank you. Golly, the whole media file, down to the People magazines online say Howard Kornfeld, Prince's would-be savior, I believe is what the headline was. And I found that so offensive because, first of all, he's nobody's would-be savior, anything, like that. So first of all, it should have been a title, but neither here nor there. The whole media file was sold on the fact that he couldn't be there. So he sent his son Andrew in his place. And I'm going to read the testimony of Andrew today because people seem to like it when I follow the script because it helps to not just portray my emotions and feelings about the situation, but the media hype behind it too. So I'm not only emotions and feelings, I'm legit PI files. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you guys coming here to learn. It's fun to have people to talk to and to know that you're watching the videos, and I bet sharing them with all people who wonder what the heck was going on in the first place. So thank you very much. During the testimony, I want you guys to know that because of the cutting and pasting that's going on and when I say cutting and pasting, I mean straight up cutting and pasting. Like I don't want to get too off track, but I've reviewed the documentation, and so some of the DEA files, you can tell where some of the wording has been cut and spliced into some of the other files, because you have to understand, I know I'm always talking about two files, PK, Prince Kirk, and Prince Rogers Nelson, but technically when you get into reading all the investigative stuff that has been available, not only on Carver County, just from all the time I've spent researching, some stuff I've gotten off other people's websites, and I appreciate that. You got to do your due diligence anywhere you can, put the pieces together. Gosh, I got off track. Sorry, I don't have any script or anything today, but I do have his script right here with me. Is what I meant to say is people seem to appreciate it when I read from that script or, back up what I'm saying and what was offered in the media. And I'm not afraid to do that. It's just that what was offered in the media is not the end all be all. And if you think that that's what they offered after hearing everything I've had to offer, then you would be highly mistaken. But I'm sure everybody here is way smarter than that. Seriously. Before I get started, you can see up on the board, you're probably wondering what that is. It's not much. It's not totally relevant to this conversation, but it kept catching my eye. And it's obviously, it says red rum. And what it also says is, I was thinking, it just came to me and I wrote it, is, rest their souls, Betty White had just passed and then Bob Saget had passed. And each time they passed, totally irrelevant, but it's okay. My son sent me a quick text that all it said is Betty White is dead. Nothing else, not hi mom, not great day, nothing, just Betty White is dead. And then whichever order it was in, I apologize. And then he texted me and said Bob Saget is dead. And that's all it said. So when he texted me and said Bob Saget was dead, I resent him the text that said Betty White is dead, and I had a bunch of question marks. And it was just random stuff like that that comes to me. And then I started writing red rum from The Shining, as people might know, or even if you don't, that's what it's from, red rum. And maybe they go together, maybe they don't. I'm going to tell you what came to me. I think the red and white, somehow red and white, was it what's red, what's black and white, red all over? Oh gosh, look, that's what I'm wearing. This really wasn't planned. That's kind of funny. Anyway, I wrote the Betty White and then Bob Saget. That's what this says, because I was thinking about my son's text. Now, and then I wrote red rum. That was kind of intentional because I wanted to show you guys that have watched the videos how I'm always talking about the upside down backwards writing. It's how the kid saw on The Shining. You see that really what he's trying to say is murder, but he writes it in a backwards sort of a way. And that's how I see. Okay. So by putting it that way, what I want you to notice is this says Saget, Saget. Okay. Now, yesterday's video, I think it was, I mentioned how the 777, which is down here, and really this wasn't part of it, but I'm going to say it anyway. It got to telling me that that this upside down writing, first of all, do you see in the middle of Saget, you have AGE? Okay, so an upside down backwards, you have the 69, and you also have egg within the middle of Bob Saget's name. It's all about coding, messaging, coding. Now, also at the end of that word is ET, okay? Do what you want with it. I'm just saying what it told me. And also when you look at it a certain kind of way and upside down backwards writing, I'm trying to do it so I can see, is it also spells the word Soros, S-O, and then this upside down becomes an R, wrong way. It's S, and then this is the O when it's upside down, and then the R goes this way, the leg of it does, as I can never be a weather woman, and swings back the other way. So what I mean to say is it's all coding, and that's what that was telling me. And just in case you guys were wondering what it is and if it was relevant to today's conversation, I guess it was. Anyway, so sorry about that, you guys. It just stuck there, the cough. The whole file, you guys, sold on the fact that the Kornfeld Howard, okay, Recovery Without Walls. I'm going to give you a little background. Recovery Without Walls is the place that they said that he worked at in San Francisco. And if you look him up online, you can see a website that's pretty, standard, and some little testimony and this and that. And he has some published papers. I'm not saying he isn't real or anything like that. However, when you look at the pamphlet that's provided, when you look up, the investigation file online, it'll show all the photos. And one thing they show is a photo of Recovery Without Walls pamphlet out in something Mills, California. And at the bottom, and I mentioned this before, but I'm going to put it all together for you. At the bottom of the pamphlet, it says Practitioners Plus as the, what do you call it? The publisher of the literature, which people could be like, so what? But every tidbit matters. And so interesting that Howard's son is doing the literature, and we'll get into why the address is important in a little while, because during the testimony, Andrew is giving the address, but they black it out. However, when I looked up the LLC, yet another LLC, for Practitioners Plus LLC, it came up as 5900 Hollis Street, Suite W, Emeryville, California, 94608. And I just went and looked up 5900 Hollis Street just now, and it appears to be a train station. So correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe you guys do. The other thing is, a lot of the addresses that are provided throughout the investigation, when you go and search the addresses, like the pill mill they mention, possible address in California, various places, you'll see that a lot of them are shut down. They're no longer even there because they were created with the LLCs and Diane Frappier and all that for just that time. And now none of those places even really exist. So it's really like a big spooky electric shadow was cast for some time. And I guess they thought everybody was just going to go to bed and forget about it. And not me. Anyway, it's really maddening that the whole file can be sold on that, because other than the hydrocodone being laced with fentanyl and Prince taking it for hip surgery, which was a lie, the other huge lie is that Howard couldn't be there. We're going to discuss the testimony and all the other inconsistencies per the testimony that we can find, because I want you guys to realize just how deep the lie goes. Okay, it's not just opinion, it is fact. So again, please bear with me because I'm using the little bottom reader here thing, and I need to shrink it so that I can see. Hold on, I think I can shrink me too, because I'm not important to see, but I need to see this. Oh man. All right, well, I'm gonna try one more time. Just a minute. I know I can bring these edges in so it's not covering my face. Just a minute, you guys. Give a girl who grew up playing the snake game, whatever it was called in the library in the 70s, where the little snake went across the board. Dang it. Just a minute, you guys. Because the literature, whatever, is saved on the PDF in a different area, and then there's YouTube. So just a minute. Okay, well, I think that you can still see me. And all right, I'm just going to do this one more time. I truly apologize. You can fast forward through this part. I know this shrinks down, but then I can, okay, yes, I can see all of that just for a learning experience. Man. All right, so for those that are interested, this is ICR number 1601-2559 digital statement between Detective Pat Murphy, badge number 859, and Andrew Kornfeld. However, during the course of the conversation, Andrew and Howard both are speaking, and you'll come to see what I mean. They also have the file notated with an unknown male and Angela Nucci, because they pop in during it. Now, what I'm going to try to do, you guys, is sorry, dang, I did it again. Is read it. I'm going to have to read it verbatim, because you guys know I try to be articulate. I flub up my words a lot of the times, but these conversations are pretty wacky. Now, what's crazy about that is all these are supposed to be real seasoned, experienced detectives and everything, dealing with Prince Rogers Nelson, whatever you want to call him, his death, biggest one in the world, lit it up purple. You know what I'm saying? But listen to how they converse, okay? And I'm not just going to straight read it, because I'm going to stop and tell you the things that are wrong with it, but I'll try not to stray. So hope you enjoy it. This dramatic reading, the tale of the two Kornfelds. At least two, anyway. So anyway, it starts in Patrick Murphy. You guys will have to follow along as to who's speaking because I'm not going to go back and forth. If somebody else interjects, I'll let you know because it's Patrick Murphy, Andrew Kornfeld back and forth. Okay, it's an interview. So I'm trying to do that. Patrick Murphy first, okay? There's no timestamp. There's no anything at the top of the file. There's no anything, okay? Patrick Murphy. Our conversations. Yeah. It helps us to remember what we talk about. Andrew says, oh, it's fine. Sometimes I might do that because it can get a little confusing. Patrick, it's not here to say that, anybody did anything wrong. It's just trying to understand the circumstances of how you guys ended up ... Yeah. At Paisley Park and what was going on. Andrew says, yeah. And I'm hoping that we can have some open conversations. I'm hearing some ... Yeah, that's Andrew. That there are some concerns. And do you refer Prince's legal name as what? Andrew says, Murphy says, you don't even know? Okay, because I do know. I think it's Prince according to Wikipedia. Yeah, but I do also know that he has other names and that he's been known by in the past. Yeah, like the symbol. Patrick says, I laid my pen down here somewhere and now I got to find it. It probably fell out of my pocket. Hey, Mark, do you have a pen I can steal from you? Now, what's interesting about that right there, you guys, is because the only Mark in the file is Mark Metz. So we know from the other interviews and things that I've done that Mark Metz's wife, and I can't remember her first name right now, was trained by Kirk Johnson. She was on Kirk's Instagram saying, you handsome devil, you always did have all the ladies during the investigation in 2016. Those have since been deleted, but I had it tracked and I'm happy to provide the documentation, but neither here nor there. So when he says, hey, Mark, do you have a pen I can steal from you? That's the only Mark that we can assume is probably there. And he says, yeah, right here, a couple, or are you good? A couple of them, if you could. Thank you, sir. Anything else, let me know. I'll be back. Yup. Do you need anything to drink at all, Andy? That's what Patrick asked Andrew. He called him Andy. Kind of familiar, don't you think? I had a friend that used to be a prison guard, and when you're talking to people, you just call them Andy. It's kind of casual. Just saying. He says, no, I'm okay. Water or anything? No, I'm okay. Do you want me to just kind of start and then it says in parentheses, inaudible. Okay. I don't want to be too technical, but I want you guys to get the drift because it's kind of long. Patrick says, yeah, hang on. I kind of got a process for this. And if I skip it, then I forget to come back to it. So what kind of officer forgets his process for interviewing? I mean, just saying. Questions? Sure. Yeah, no problem. All right. So for the recording, finally, for the recording, today's date is 4/21, and now the time is 10:54, and I'm meeting with Andrew. And I don't yet have a file number on this, but this is regarding a death investigation. And do you prefer Andrew or Andy, or what do you prefer? So after he called him Andy, he started the recording and went to ask him and stated the time, and then asked him, did he prefer Andy or Andrew? So, the way that it cut in at the beginning lets you know there's some chit chat before it wasn't recorded, and it. So he says Andrew, and he spells out his last name. I'm not going to do that. He goes through his birthday, his address. Now, when he's giving his address, there's a bunch of blacked out portions, and the interesting thing is that I mentioned the Hollis address, but I believe the address they blacked out here was the 4590 Santa Rita Road. And that's in California as well, but it's blacked out. The rest of the address is blacked out. But the thing that's interesting is during the interview too, I want you guys to know is that he says he runs his business Practitioners Plus out of his home address like the millennials do. So if 4590 Santa Rita Road is his home address, but he runs Practitioners Plus out of 5900 Hollis, which is the LLC for the train station, then you got to wonder what's going on. So back to the script, right? Right. So he spells out his address, north, south. You got to spell that for me. Zip code, cell phone. Okay. Do you have an email or anything else like that if you're not available on your cell? Yeah. And then they black out that this is really important. He says, yeah, blah, 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 but it's blacked out. No dots, no dashes, and capitals don't matter. And then Patrick Murphy says, yeah, that's kind of my default is blank, blank, blank. It doesn't say, but what he did is provided his default what? His default email, his default address. He gave it right back to the person he's interviewing. I mean, I'm just wondering. That's what it sounds like to me. Patrick says, okay, I have to put my glasses on. Can you call Wags? She was calling me before. She wanted to have some piece of information or didn't know if she wanted us to had a question, or somebody in the background says, yeah, I'll call her right away. Kind of irrelevant, but that's the kind of professionalism that was around Chanhassen City Hall where they were doing the interview, supposedly. Before I forget, I want you guys to know that he time stamped it when he said it was now, what do you say, 10:54? City Hall is approximately 7 minutes from Paisley, give or take. And what's interesting to know is that, you know, when I broke down the schedules of all the people, that Detective Nucci said that Patrick Murphy, who's doing this interview right now, she said in her file that he left the scene at 10:34 with one male subject. Okay. Now, Detective Nelson noted that that they left at 10:39. So somewhere between 10:34 and 10:39, the officers noted that Murphy was taking another male to another part of the building. That's all it said. I don't have that verbatim available, just the way it is. But so for them to be at Chanhassen doing the interview at 10:54, and I'm going to show you some other things too, don't you worry. The timing just doesn't work out. So that lets us know that there's more than, you know, one story going on. So anyway, skimmity, skimmity, skim. Okay. He said, so he'll call her back right away, blah, blah, blah. So Patrick goes back to talking. And, you know, as I said, as I understand what I'm hearing, like he has an earpiece, what I'm hearing is there were some medical issues or behavior concerns that people were having with Prince. And I don't know what the background is with that. So I'm hoping that you can have an open conversation with me so that maybe that will help us understand the circumstances of why we found him today. Strange choice of words, don't you think? Andrew says, yeah. And, you know, sometimes I know when we start dealing with medical stuff or chemical dependency things or people being afraid that, you know, they're kind of misrepresenting the person, that sometimes creates roadblocks. But I'm hoping we can have some open communication because it'll help us understand and maybe have some explanations of why we found him today the way he is. Okay, yeah. Does that make sense to you? Sure, yeah. And I'll tell you what I know. I'll tell you everything I know. Now, listen. All the way through this, you're going to notice that he asks for open conversations and open communication. And all the way through this, you'll notice the brain fogs that the people get that are speaking. And during that supposed interview, I mean, I don't know if I was in a court of law. You guys watch Law and Order, you know, you can't feed him all that information. And that's not a line of questioning. He just fed him a bunch of information that he wanted to hear back. So it's absolutely ridiculous on that note. But I'm going to keep going because I could shred this thing like a cat with claws. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Patrick says, okay, and that's great. And I just bring that up because sometimes we do run into a little bit that's why it's best to be able to try and figure out what's going on. Okay. So you came to Minnesota for what reason? So that's the very first question he asked him. I know, right? So I was in California last night, Andrew said, and Prince's people were in touch with our medical practice. Now, stop right there. Andrew, you have a medical practice with our medical practice? Now, whether or not you're representing your father, you wouldn't say he was in touch with our medical practice, Andrew, who hadn't even been to medical school or taken any tests. Okay. Sorry. Okay, and what medical practice is that? It's called Recovery Without Walls. Okay, and you guys we specialize in pain management, addictions, medicine, and mood disorders. I don't know that many specifics about Prince's case. I was going to ask him a couple things. I was sent by my dad to kind of talk to him to see if our program would be appropriate for Prince. And just so that I understand, when you reference your dad, this is Patrick, and you might want to listen up here. And just so that I understand, when you reference your dad, is your dad a doctor at the facility? Yeah, so this is my dad right there. Oh, okay. So Howard Kornfeld? Yeah, he never talked to Prince. So that's on page 5 of 29 pages on the interview between Andrew Kornfeld and Patrick Murphy. When he asked, is your dad a doctor at the facility? That would most likely be the Eckenkower Center facility that I've referenced before. However, I mean, I don't know, whatever else it would be, the facility. And then he points him out. Yes, that's my dad right there. Okay, so Howard Kornfeld? Identified at the scene, okay, by his own son and the detective. Okay, so like he was sending you as a representative to come out here, and yeah, he couldn't come out. Now, maybe he couldn't come out to the residence or he couldn't come out to the studio, but he was out all right. Okay, and just see whether or not Prince qualified for your program or whether it was something that you guys, that's what Patrick said, you guys, okay? You're talking to one person. I mean, granted, people do say the word you guys sometimes, but when you're talking to one person, do you say you guys? I don't. That would be kind of silly. So Patrick Murphy said whether or not it was something that you guys, something that he would want to do. And then Patrick says, do you know, was Prince aware that you guys were going to come out here? Was this kind of an intervention thing or what? What did you think the purpose was before you even got to the door? And he says, to be honest, I don't know. So, before he said that he came out there to meet with them to see if the program was appropriate. And then now he's saying, to be honest, he doesn't know why he was there before he got his front door. Just a little weird. Andrew says, I don't know the answer to that question because Kirk and the girl, they wanted to give him a lot of privacy. Now, if everybody was in such a gung-ho hurry to go rescue Prince, who was having all these opiate addictions, then why, for the millionth time, and I'll show you guys too, did he say that they wanted to give him his privacy? Okay. Patrick says, right. Andrew says, and I was kind of expecting to be able to like land and first thing in the morning, like go meet with Prince. But they wanted to give him his privacy. So I just went to my hotel and we met together, and they were concerned about him because they hadn't heard from him. And I kind of encouraged them to like check on him. Now, this is very, very telling, you guys. If you didn't hear me, please listen up. I'll repeat it. Andrew said, or Howard, whoever it was, but they wanted to give him his privacy. So I just went to my hotel and we met together, and they were concerned about him because they hadn't heard from him. And I kind of encouraged them to like check on him. Very telling, right? Heard about what? Okay. And they said, well, why don't you just come with us to the whatever that place is called? Paisley Park, because they were already at the residence probably, so they just went over to Paisley Park to investigations. Yeah, they call it Paisley Park. Okay, yeah, come to Paisley Park. They couldn't find him, and I encouraged them to check, and then I just heard a scream, and I knew, just like right there. Okay. I just, you just kind of know, like, dot, dot, dot. So do you remember, just for a timeline for me, Andrew? So when did your flight come in last night, roughly? So Andrew was about to lapse into, or somebody was about to lapse into a memory of hearing a scream and seeing, you kind of know when you're hearing a death curdling scream type thing. And that's about probably what he was going to say. Okay. You can say, I'm assuming, I'm expressing my feelings, whatever, but we all know that's what he was doing. You just know right there, when a kid screams and a mom or a dad hears it, they know when something's wrong, and that's what he meant. Anyway, so he goes on, when did your flight come in? He landed at 6 a.m, red eye, yesterday. He says, so yesterday, he said today. So that would be questionable as to when the interview was actually taking place too, because I don't want to get stuck on that. More important things to do. 6 in, so I'm a little tired, obviously. He says, yep, well, I can understand that. Do you remember when you left your hotel to come out here? Did you come up straight from the airport? So listen, I got a car. They called some car for me to be in the hotel. I talked with them. We met at the hotel. Kirk, and I'm forgetting the girl's name now. Oh, excuse me. And then Patrick says, was it the taller gal Marone? Now, again, he's prompting Andrew to say Marone's name or Howard, because I think it was Howard, because Howard said, I talked with them, blah, blah, blah. Howard is an old man. He would refer to someone as the girl. You know what I mean? You know how old people talk, oh, the girl. But a millennial like Andrew would not call somebody the girl. Somebody that was his age or younger. No, it's just not going to happen. So anyway, he puts the name in his mouth, Marone, but the point is Phaedra also turns out to be there too. So they're inserting names. So Andrew says, Kirk and Marone, we had breakfast together. And then they were like, okay, let's just go over there. And I said, okay. And I was kind of just expecting to show Prince a brochure and talk to him. We're just going to like have a, possibly have his jet fly out, and now skirt. He just said they had breakfast together, Marone and Kirk. But earlier he said, but they wanted to give him his privacy. So I just went to my hotel and we met together, and they were kind of concerned because they hadn't heard from him. Okay. If you do your research, you also know that it was reported that Kirk and Marone picked up Andrew at the airport. But here Andrew is telling us that there was a car that was sent for him that took him to Chanhassen Country Inn and Suites. And then said, hey, let's just go over there and show him this pamphlet and leave it in the Purple Rain room, which is very important too, because when you do your investigative work, you note that Andrew was never said that he didn't have any contact with them or anything prior to finding him there. However, the Recovery Without Walls pamphlet with the practitioners plus embroidery, for lack of a better word, on the back was in the Purple Rain room, which nobody should have been in with the Recovery Without Walls literature. So moving on. Do you remember what time you guys got out there roughly? Yep. To his house. Well, this is what they say, and this is important too. Do you remember what time you guys got out there roughly? Yeah, to his house. You mean to Paisley? Yep, to Paisley Park. So he asked about his house and Paisley. Very important. Rough guess. Andrew says 9 a.m. Can I just look at my calendar? Because he still had his phone on his person and his calendar, which was what, in his green backpack that they said they had in their possession. Just wondering. Because it wasn't like a murder investigation like the world wants you to believe. It was more of a, hey, can you sit down and do this interview for me voluntarily type thing. Right? I know. So he tells him he can look at his calendar. I just want to look at the time. And then Patrick Murphy says, I just wondered if when you pulled up, if you looked at the dash on the car, or if you happened to see a clock, or if you, and Andrew said, I think it was 9. So Patrick says, or you got some messages, helps us create a time frame. Yeah, 9-ish, 9:15, Andrew says. Well, what time was it? Anyway, Andrew says, I waited in that place where we found the bags, like, for a while. So he said, I waited in that place where we found the bags for a while. Now, very interesting, because when you read the files, you know that Patrick Murphy was known, and I can get to it, but I'll just tell you. He was said in his own report that Andrew asked if he could go back and retrieve his green backpack and Marone's black purse. And this was around 10:39, 10:45, which again would make it impossible to be at Chanhassen City Hall being interviewed at 10:54, because he said he escorted them back in there to get the backpack. And I'll read it to you, because then it's actually cut and paste, because he says he's escorting Andrew down the hallway to get it. But then all of a sudden he says when Kirk identified his bag, it just switched from being with Andrew to Kirk. So it's crazy like that all the way through. Funny business. I'm going to skim this because it's really long, and just get to the very important parts. I just kind of want to give you a taste of what's going on. So he said we waited in that place where we found the bags, which would make you think that he got to Paisley Park and they found some bags that were already there for them. And then Patrick says, okay. And then Andrew says, with Redra, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble remembering her name. Redra. You see, he's trying to say Phaedra because Phaedra was there. Just saying. Maybe that's why Red Rum is up there. I don't know. And then Patrick says and then he says with Ra, what's her name? And then so Patrick Murphy force feeds him Marone 2 times in a row. That's not even close to Ra or Phaedra. Red hand pharaoh. Everything for a reason. And then Patrick says, because there's 2 girls, one's a white girl and one's a black girl. Andrew said black girl. That's Phaedra. She's black. Darker than Marone, who appears to be very young and of mixed lineage, and Phaedra is a bit more obviously, darker skin. So he said that. Sorry, I lost my place. Patrick says, Andrew says with Marone, this is the first time I've met them. And then Patrick says, yep, it's okay. And I think I'm just having a few memory issues, Andrew says. And then it says inaudible in parentheses, because when he has memory issues, you got to fix that headphone. No, and it's just this. Patrick says this isn't. No, and it's this isn't to create stress on that end. Yeah, no. I'm okay. And Patrick says, and I struggle with names every once in a while too. Yeah, especially if it's Bran. And Andrew says Kirk really stuck in my memory, in my head. So this is real interesting. Patrick says, yep, but brand new people. Yeah, you noticed when I met her, I had to ask her name a couple of times to make sure that I was pronouncing it the right way. So I wonder why Andrew would notice when Patrick Murphy was meeting Phaedra, why he would be privy to that meeting, even if he was a witness to the scene, when they don't even say that Phaedra was there. Just curious. Red hand in the cookie jar. Yeah, and then Andrew speaking, they were looking a little nervous, and then they went to go look around for him, and then I heard a scream. I just decided, okay, I'm just going to run in there, and I dialed 9. I saw him on the ground, and I dialed 911. I didn't know the name of where we were, so that was kind of hard. Now, what's interesting is when you're reading the script, he says he ran in there and dialed 9, and then he says, I saw him on the ground. So it's interesting the way they make it look like he dialed 911 right there, but then he goes on to say that he dialed 911, which again, every little thing. So if he ran from the residence part of Paisley Park, which would have been around back, I believe on the north side, And because that's how they funk on the north side, but not the main front entrance, but the other side. So he probably ran through to where he heard the scream, which was the elevator area that Kirk was concerned about having cleaned. So anyway, and then Andrew says, but you guys got there really quick. I felt him. I put my hand on him. He was warm. He was rigor mortis. Okay. So that's when I decided not to do CPR. So where did you guys find him? In the elevator. I want to say something. If Andrew Kornfeld is being interviewed, and he said that he decided not to do CPR, that's just another person that decided not to do CPR, because why would you on a body that had rigor mortis, but you couldn't figure out why it was warm? We discussed that elsewhere, but my point is, he, as the interview goes on, he's real nervous about everything medical, and I think that they were talking to Howard. So we'll keep listening anyway. He decided not to do. They found him in the elevator. He said, Patrick says, do you remember which room the elevator was or which floor the elevator was on? I don't know how many ... Andrew says this. It was on the floor that we were on. So Patrick says, okay, so the main level? Main level, yeah. And if you're looking at the elevator, he was on the right side of the elevator. Do you remember face up, face down, seated, side on his side? Do you remember which side he was lying? Yep, left side. I mean, yeah, I think so, yeah. Okay. Did it look to you like he just collapsed there when you saw him? This is super relevant. He says he's on his left side. He looked a little contorted, like he collapsed on his own, like he was just sleeping. And like he just got dizzy, and then he goes on to say that he didn't notice any blood or trauma coming from anywhere, no fluids. And he said, no, he just looked dead. Okay. And so that's interesting, because the other officer, as we discussed on the other videos, noted that he had fluid running out of his mouth, that it wasn't a foam cone as was normal with opiate overdoses or whatever else. I can't remember. But he said he didn't notice anything. So just saying. And Patrick Murphy says, okay, it doesn't sound like they gave you a lot of history, but, obviously your dad's facility, helps recovering addicts. Did they give you any of the backstory on why they wanted you to come out and visit with him, other than to see if the program would fit him? I mean, did they talk to you about what he was struggling with, what he was using, what he was doing? And then they go on with how private he was. And they're inferring and assuming that there's an opiate issue, but they never say what it is. And the fact is you got the Suboxone, as I talked about in yesterday's video. That's the thing. All through the file, they say an opiate issue, an opiate problem, and they infer that it was with prescriptions, and they infer this and they infer that, but they never document it. So here it is. Okay. Did they say whether it was street drugs or prescriptions? Do you, and I don't know if that matters to your facility. Okay. He's talking to Howard. And he says, I could infer that it was probably like prescription. So I don't know. You're dealing with Prince Rogers Nelson. You might want to infer. So they talk about getting the history that Andrew says he's done this before when they have a high profile client. Pardon me. I'm going to skim. Now, here's the part where he says, okay, do you remember when did you, this is Patrick Murphy speaking, when did your recovery center get the call to come out? Do you remember when your dad first started having contact? Now, first of all, he's talking to two people, the tale of the two Kornfelds, because he said, when did your recovery center? You wouldn't ask Andrew that, his recovery center. He wouldn't. So, do you remember when your dad first started having contact? And then he says, my dad told me he'd been on the phone all of yesterday. Now, saying all of yesterday is quite different than the media hype file that that Dr. Schulenberg and Phaedra and Kirk started texting around 8 o'clock that night on the 20th because they were also concerned about, the opiate use and they wanted to save him. So why would he be on the phone all of yesterday? Okay, big difference. And then he goes on, Patrick says, do you hold a medical degree like your dad? And then he says, I don't. I'm pre-med. So you're working on it. Yeah, I'm working on it. I just took my MCAT exam. I don't know if this is my field. Haven't quite figured it out yet, blah, 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 blah. Loves working with his dad. And I do work with him, but I also kind of have my own business too. This is very important. Okay, what's your business? I do consulting and marketing for health professionals themselves. Okay, in private practice. What happened was I was helping my dad with that. And a lot of his colleagues got jealous and asked for my help. Okay, so it's kind of a specific field, but do you have the name of your company? Or, do you have business cards for your company? I don't have any. My business cards arrived today. The LLC was fairly new, so young Andrew didn't have his business cards for his Practitioners Plus LLC yet. Interesting to know, because another file says that he hands over a business card for Recovery Without Walls. Just saying. Now, on that too, he said it's in the mail. It's called Practitioners Plus. Okay. LLC. Where are you based? Out of California? Yep, out of my house. It's what us millennials do. Okay, you don't always want to go into an office setting. Yep. Andrew says, yeah, it's going good, but it's not where my heart's at. My heart want to go to medical school, do a PhD or something, blah, blah, blah. And then Patrick Murphy says this. Okay, anything that you said that Kirk had talked to you, that Prince has got an inner circle of people. And you know what? I've never met the man personally. I do know that he can be a very private person. And there's always been, Andrew says, and that's what I got. And there's always been that aura around him, Patrick says. Yeah, very private. Of people being very protective of him. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. They've always been protective of him. That's what Patrick Murphy is saying to Andrew Kornfeld. They've always been protective of that aura around him. Yeah. Do you, out of any of that conversation that you had with Kirk, who are the three people, and maybe those would be the people that would be able to help us figure out what happened? Did Kirk tell you who those confidants were? Yeah, so the Roni, the black, sorry. How professional is that? Roni. Marone, maybe? Okay, so Marone, blah, blah, blah. And there's the other lady that I couldn't tell you her name. Oops, pardon. Okay, sure. Was that the same gal that was there? And Andrew said no. And then he says, the other girl? No. And he says, okay. This is the other girl. Her name is, and we had kind of a, she helped arrange my travel over here. That was Phaedra. Because another part of the interview that we will get to, he says precisely that she arranged his travel arrangements, whereas Andrew was picked up by Marone and Kirk. And Kirk was his contact, which is why there was the text and phone calls at 6:22 in the morning. So to have Phaedra setting up this contact would make for another interesting tidbit, wouldn't it? Spells out the names, blah, blah, blah. Andrew goes on to say that Kirk and Marone could tell you more about Phaedra, spelling out her name. So the thing is, Patrick is asking Andrew or Howard, whoever he's talking to, do you have a contact number for Phaedra and an email, or how you guys communicated? And if you have a last name that went with that. And then, so he's like, okay. And he spells out Phaedra's name. Andrew Kornfeld supposedly does, skimming through his phone, saying he has a lot of phone numbers. And he says, I mean, you're going to be able to get that information from, and then blah, 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 it goes off. So he's skimming through his phone, blah, blah, blah. So Patrick goes on to say, when you flew in, who was your contact when you flew in? Was it Kirk? And he said, yup, it was Kirk. Okay. So hold on. Then they talk about the hotel. Andrew says, or it says Andrew, it says AK. Okay, so the hotel is, I think I have the itinerary in there, but let me see if I have it right here. Okay, I have a card. I have the hotel card. Patrick Murphy says, no, that's all right. A detective, Patrick Murphy, told him, no, that's all right. He doesn't need the hotel card that he was made to stay at. Like, come on, you guys. Seriously, are you feeling me yet? Please say yes. Golly gee. And then it goes on to talk about where the hotel's at, which I could get into. Eden Prairie, close to the hotel. But the fact of the matter is, he says, Patrick Murphy says, we're going to have to spend some time going through the backpack to make sure that there were no other people in the building. And then there is some other evidence that might be in there that would help explain Prince's condition. Is there anything in your bag that you would like that would be of concern? If we just look through it to make sure that we know what's in it. So they don't have a warrant. They don't have anything at all. They're voluntarily, asking for a bag because it was taken off the scene because, as he said, the bag was in the room when he got there. And then he says, there is something in there that would be of concern to you, Andrew says. Okay, is that something you'd be willing to tell me about? Or, yeah, can I just pull it out? Andrew says, well, I have some pills with me. Okay, what kind of pills? He has Suboxone with him. Which is like a drug, used for opiate addicts. And I brought those on my own accord. It's just like when I travel with this, these are the types of things. I have no intention of using them. You know what I mean? I have like a little Ativan with me, which is like a benzodiazepine. Like if someone's having a seizure. So he has Suboxone and Ativan with him. And we discussed yesterday and all the other many times what Schulenberg and Prince Kirk were providing to the situation. And now here we have the Kornfelds bring the medication as well. So you just want to keep believing the People magazine and the TMZs. Well, we're going to learn that the media lies. Okay, you guys, they just lie. He said, so he brought the benzos in case someone was having a seizure in front of him. You know what I mean? And there's an anti-nausea suppository. So if like someone is puking all over the place, I have that with me too. So are these controlled medicines? He asks them, did he bring them on the airplane? He says he brought them in a checked bag. Okay. In the backpack, he said it was carry-on. I'm going to skim because it's kind of long. So he says that you're going to visit a potential addict with prescriptions with you. You're bringing medications that don't belong to you. Patrick Murphy is feeding all this information to Andrew. And he talks about, Andrew says he wouldn't administer them under any circumstances without consulting a physician like his father on the phone. And the honest reason, Andrew says, is because if someone's like, dying, right in front of you, but it takes a while to, but you don't know if you're helping or hurting, you're not qualified to make that, well, I would call a doctor. Right. But you're not helping or hurting. You're not qualified to do that. And calling a doctor is one thing. Maybe taking direction from your dad over the phone is another thing. But that's all I'm asking you is to be honest about it. Yeah, I'm just being completely honest. And that's it. And in the end, what happened was I had them in my backpack and that was in the room. I never took them out. I never touched them. But why did you bring them with? I mean, you say you carry them. Why did you bring them? Did you think that if Chris was willing to meet with you, that they were going to be medications that you were going to help stabilize him? What were you going to use them for? Or, this is very important, or, other rumors that I've heard that have occurred at that location is just people go there and party and get high. So is that one? No, Andrew said quickly. Now, if you guys do your research on the internet, and I don't usually tell you to go search for junky propaganda, but the point is when you listen to the music for 40 years like I did, and Prince Rogers Nelson's personality, et cetera, and then there are some rumors out there that there was sex parties in various rooms with chains, whips, this, that, the other, and also in the backpack, not the backpack, the trash outside the concert hall where they found the disposed Tylenol 3 that we discussed yesterday. They found the baggy residue had ecstasy on it. So what I mean to say was, with the powers that they were given, basically Paisley Park was like a whole big, I believe it was like a big drug manufacturing rundown. Go look at the exterior photos. I mentioned this before, you guys, but go look at the exterior photos from the day of the investigation. They're all over the internet. You can see how rundown everything was, the dirt. You can see also, it's very important. Everything matters. The pictures show like it was raining that day on the 21st, if that's when they took them. And over on the side where the parking is, you can see that there's all kinds of tire tracks leaving in the mud. So like the rain congealed, in the muddy spots. Like, this is Paisley Park that is now this museum that after a person passes away, But I'm just saying, you can tell that stuff is going on there. So ramble, but still, just saying. Sorry, I don't know how close I was right there because I got the two things pulled up and I can't see. So anyway, that and the amniophenol dust from making Tylenol and all the antibiotics that are prescribed throughout. So it's all real interesting. So we're going to see somebody who has a chemical dependency issue, and then we get people that are coming out to help him bring things that are, unless they're prescribed to you, illegal to possess. And so I'm trying to understand the circumstances behind it. So it just goes on about this nonsense conversation where it doesn't really say much, but then he's saying he's trying to understand. And then Patrick Murphy says this: if we were honest about it, because if you call our dispatchers, they can't tell you to give somebody something. Patrick, our medics aren't going to tell you to give anybody anything until you, Andrew says, sure, until they get there. So sure. But I do understand when you get people that are of high profile, when you're trying to keep, law enforcement away, you're trying to keep the medics away if they're having a medical emergency to help them get to a facility that's, sure, Andrew says, sure, if you say so. Maybe a little more private. Sometimes people try to intervene, Patrick Murphy said. Sometimes people try to intervene. Andrew says, sure. And Patrick says, and so that would be one of the questions that I would have is ... And Andrew Kornfeld says, I wouldn't try. Patrick says, did somebody try to intervene? Intervene with what, Patrick Murphy? Intervene with what? Watching somebody die? I'm excitable. Andrew says, no. Patrick says, if they discovered him, no. And things were going bad and somebody tried to intervene by giving him something, Patrick Murphy said. Andrew says, if I had discovered him and he was like, having some distress, I would call my dad. Yep. Or I would call 911. That's what I would do. So is that why you called 911, Andrew? To report that he was having distress? And did they just let him die, maybe? I'm just hypothesizing. Yep, that's all we're trying to understand, Andrew. Yeah, Andrew says, yeah, it's just like by the time sometimes like by the time a prescription can come, someone could be well, and like, the medications I have, like I have an anti-nausea, a suppository. It's not like the controlled substance or anything. What are they doing? And it's not that very, very much of it. You know what I mean? Oh, they go on to talk about the drugs some more. And then he says, do you have anything else, any medications on your person? And then he says, just one little bag. Pardon me? Patrick Murphy says. Told you it was going to be dramatic. Just one bag. One bag that's in your backpack? Yes, Andrew says. Yeah. Okay, can I show you where it is? Well, we'll probably we're going to go through and inventory it, and I'll be giving you the bag back. maybe at a later time, we'll figure out what I can and can't give you back. Again, because the possession of that would be illegal. Therefore, homie, we can't give you your drugs back. I'm just saying. So we want to try and work through that a little. So Patrick Murphy, the detective, wants to work through that a little bit, So our primary focus at this point is to try to understand what's going on with Prince. This thing giving me fuzzies. Sorry. I don't know why I just rubbed it on my nose again and made it worse. Because I'm a goof. And I time travel and my mind slips. I was dreaming when I wrote this. Okay, here back. Okay. Now I got a fuzzy in my mouth. Okay. Our primary focus is to try to understand. My brain travels like theirs too. I drank the Kool-Aid. Andrew says, I don't think that I really kind of fully thought through the implications, that I just took on. I did. It's almost like unconscious. You know what I mean? That they're sitting there in my medicine cabinet. You know what I mean? Andrew said, I don't even remember where they came from. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. I haven't looked at them and I don't remember where they're from. It's just like, and he said Mo, M-O, comma. So was he going to say Moline? I'm just wondering. Andrew says, I don't even remember where they were from. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. I haven't looked at them and I don't remember where they're from. It's just like, yeah, but again, Andrew, I'm not trying to box you into a corner. Yeah, I know. Patrick Murphy says, but you brought them along for a purpose, and I think that you were going to see a high-profile client and you thought that maybe he was going to have some problems and you brought some meds with you so that if he was in unstable condition, I think you were going to try to help him. I think Patrick Murphy was trying to insinuate that Andrew Kornfeld might be a fan of Prince's and was bringing the drugs in case he was in duress and he wanted to help him. I think that's what Patrick Murphy is trying to feed him. What it sounded like to me, hypothetically. My feelings. Andrew said he would call a doctor. And Patrick said, yeah, but I think the purpose for bringing them was to try to help him. Okay. Again, the risk. This is Patrick Murphy. Again, the risk. And I guess what I was going to ask did you check the bag or was it a carry-on? Because I'm surprised that you didn't get caught through screening, that if they're not in a prescription bottle and they're just laying in there loose, that somebody wouldn't have intercepted them, or whether they missed it in screening or you just checked them through. So not only was there medications that he said he checked, or excuse me, he said he brought them in his carry-on, but the fact of the matter is they were in there loose too. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, maybe they threw them in from the scene. I mean, I don't know, but the fact of the matter is it wasn't what they sold in the media. And that's what you guys need to remember. Regardless of what you think of this craziness, their story, not mine. Just a minute, sorry. Don't forget Kirk used private jets and stuff all the time too. So medication, schmedication, no problem there. And then Patrick Murphy tells him, so sometimes they do a good bag search, and Andrew says, oh, they could have destroyed my career. And then they have some nonsensical conversation. Just a minute. It's just really nonsensical and very, it's like they're really it's just not worth that. They want to keep him out of the public eye, that he's private. Once information gets out that he's passed away, I'm assuming there's going to be a million stories as to what are going on. He doesn't want to harm his future career. He reiterates with him, more importantly, that he got there. He said he got there at 9, but then he says he got there about 9:15, and he was waiting in the room with Rona. And he was waiting in the room with Rona for about 15 minutes. And he double asked, do you think it was that long? And he said, yeah, 10 to 15 minutes. And he said, what? Because they were having a hard time finding him? Andrew says, And Kirk came back and was like nervous, like he didn't want to interrupt Prince or something like that. So do you think Kirk found him first and Andrew said, I think Kirk ... And then Patrick Murphy says Marone went with him, and then Andrew says, I think Kirk found him first and then Marone went with him. So whether or not he was going to say he thinks Kirk, what? Because then he prompted him to say something about Marone. That's what I'm getting at. You guys have seen the shows. I think Kirk found him first and then Marone went with him because she was with you originally. She was with me originally. Yeah. Okay. So blah, 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 blah. Chris Nelson steps in here at this point in the interview. Excuse me, Angie. He says, thanks, Ange, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. He asks him who the other two people were, and Andrew says, I don't know. Patrick says the other couple that was there, that probably would be Josh and Hannah. He said, I don't know who they were. If they were friends and Andrew says this, they obviously seemed like friends. Now, the interesting thing about Josh and Hannah Welton is their initials are JW, JHW, which would be, and then Kirk Johnson, we have, this is the name, Jehovah, that you're not supposed to say that the Kingdom Hall uses, and then King James for Kirk Johnson's, Old Man Johnson's farm. Okay, that's just part of the situation because it's all coded. Well, sidestep there, but it's relevant. They seemed like friends. Who would say that? So do you know how long afterwards they showed up? I mean, how long you guys were at the building? He said like 10 minutes. So he said he was waiting in the room for basically close to a half hour when you read discrepancies in his interview. But then he says, do you know how long after the others showed up, how long you were at the building? And he says about 10 minutes. Everyone showed up really quick. And the doctor told me that he was just like on a routine. So was that the plan that the doc, because when I introduced myself to the doctor, he had some packets of information. Yeah. Did you know that he was gonna pass off any paperwork? I had no idea that he was going to come. Okay, so he just happened to be there. Yeah. So I think that's maybe, and you don't know the answer, and I'm trying to figure out what this other inner workings are and what's going on in the background. And Andrew says, I never met that doctor before, nor did I even know that doctor was involved. I'm going to stop right there because this video is kind of long. I never met that doctor, nor did I even know that doctor was involved. That's a very telling statement. What doctor did you know was involved, Andrew? The fact of the matter is, when you guys go through the text, it's not just about the tale of the two Kornfelds. And man, that's page 27 of 29. They talk about jet lag after and how he has no arrangements home. That it was a one-way flight, which would be quite strange if somebody had arranged your flight with a one-way flight from San Francisco without a flight home for such a major client, kind of an open-ended plan, don't you think? And then, anyway, he goes on to say that he asks him, the detective asks if he's on any medication. He says, no, I take a couple non-psychoactive medications for my Crohn's disease. So he feels the need to be specific about non-psychoactive medications because the experimentations with the psychoactives, which is what Practitioners Plus and Andrew Kornfeld's and the millennials in the naloxone, which is the Suboxone stuff. It's what they do. Nowadays you can get it in nasal spray. They're using it for anxiety and this and that and the others and all the stuff that they were just bringing into the public eye in 2016. That's what they're talking about. The all the droney people taking the non-psychoactive medications. You guys, it is what it is. The facility, go watch the Josh Hartnett movie, The Faculty. It's kind of the same. Invasion of the Body Snatchers type stuff, and I'm not playing. If I didn't have my life after life experience where the creator told me all this stuff, I would be questioning, big question mark above my head too. But so I do understand it. I joke about it, but I figure after providing so much evidence that if you guys still, choose to, believe the media or just like, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. There's too much evidence to show that they're lying. And we have to ask ourselves as souls, why? Why is it this big? Why is it big enough to sell this way? Because the creator had to give them something to sell, because that was part of the deal. There's when will we be paid? You know what I'm saying? That's where those songs come in. Everything is about the wage, the slave, the being here long enough contractually to sing the music to help, as I'm always saying, me understand and know these players well enough with his help always to bring it to you guys. So I don't mean to be insulting when I say it's obvious. It's just that sorry, I wanted it all. It was my last one. Again, you guys, I am here fulfilling my soul purpose. I giggle and laugh because my whole 38 years of listening to the music and following and, loving and wondering and wandering and reading my Bible and praying and believing that so deep in my soul that even before I know what I know now that I'm trying to share with you guys, that I knew the one the world knew as Prince Rogers Nelson was too great. The music, the melodies, the chords, like the lyrics, the teaching, all of it. You're not that, you can't exist on that level of genius and giving and humbleness and do all these things that are being accused. And so he had to give them something to sell, is what I'm saying. And if you watch yesterday's video, we talk about the media, and I don't want to get too far off on that. But even with the music, the Rainbow Children album that they tried to say was his reason for joining the Kingdom Hall and then putting out that album. But if you listen to it, first of all, somebody who belonged to a Kingdom Hall would never make that kind of music. They wouldn't allow them to. It's not the way the thing works. It was just it's what he had to do. It's like what the world may call heresy, and they say, call me blasphemous, or say, I'm saying Prince is God and she's absolutely out of her mind. You know what I mean? But you guys don't understand. And I've been remiss, and I'll try to get better at it, helping you understand that due to my life after life and having those experiences, that this world that we are in, this reality, is so limited. It's like not how the creator exists. This is just a tiny portion. Like, we almost don't even exist. You know what I'm saying? How small we are in the universe of things. And yet we have all this narcissism running rampant, me, selfie generation, because everybody thinks they're so fabulous and great and their plans are this, that, and that, and they can do this without the creator. However, that's another reason that I'm here, and that he made these things happen this way, so the plan would unfold this way, so they can bring himself forward. And you guys can learn that the creator of the universe, the master of the universe, told me when I died that we're all like in this little bubble, like, and then when the layers of the bubble peeled back and the earth was inside of it, like in here, we're blocked from seeing all the other things that go on out in the universe. Like, we're seeing the sky and we think it's all endless, and NASA and stuff, the Trojan horse tells us all about what's out in outer space, and we believe it. Oh, the scientists said it. Well, they're experts, they know, but they're paid experts. Go listen to the XCD. I got all the great minds of the world. Ha ha ha. It's a plan, you guys. He made it this way. All of his creations, stories will be told He had to have the bad things to show us what was good. And this world that we're in is really just a trial run. It just is. You have to have things on your back teaching you what's wrong to teach you what's right. You know what I'm saying? And it's just on a much grander scale. So for you to walk around with blinders on in the world thinking that the Illuminati and the NWO and things of chaos and disorder that I don't want to mention, they do exist, you guys. They just exist in a realm outside of the one that we as a society have been programmed to recognize. And trying to break the code. And again, it's work for me too. It's practice. I have the Creator's loving help, and He wants to give it to you too, you guys, but you got to pray it in. The more you correct yourself, the more He can show Himself, and what a sight that'll be. For you guys, I saw it already, but I don't know. I'm sure He has lots of surprises in store because He operates like that on the daily. I'm really grateful, you guys. I never thought that I would come and say these words. Well, I didn't know these words, but what I meant to say earlier is, like I told you guys before, from the holidays to making cookies to all the comments with my grandkids to 3 generations of grandkids. And by the way, my 9th granddaughter is 2 days overdue. Pardon me. Love you, Audrey. See, I went and got myself distracted again, thinking about that 9th grandbaby. Safe and wondrous birth to you, my dear. I'll let you guys go because I just bit my own lip. So here's to goofiness. Come back and see me. I'm getting more brave. I have lots and lots of things to share. I appreciate you guys. That hurt. I'm going to go for a minute. I'm talking too long. I need some more coffee. Love you. Bye.